Woohoo! And we're live once again on another Tuesday. I have a wonderful guest in the house today, Mic Adam, who's beaming in all the way from across the pond. So I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself, Mic, and then we will get stuck in on our topic today.
Okay. Hi, my name is Mic Adam. I come from Belgium. I live in the little town called Bruges, which is probably famous for its canals, its chocolate, and its beer. And what I do on a daily basis is I'm a trainer, consultant, coach, and I help companies with their social selling, recruitment, and employee advocacy on a daily basis. Other than that, I walk my dogs twice a day, and that takes about an hour and a half each day.
Wow. Wow. How far do you walk? That's a long walk.
It's about all things together. It's probably about like 5 miles altogether, maybe a little more than that. So I have
Wow.
no trouble getting to 15,000 steps a day.
That is excellent because that creates balance in your life and it makes your dogs happy. So that's a good thing. I love it. I love it. So our topic today is social selling and the art of conversation, which just seemed like a great topic because we haven't talked about, we've talked about social selling before, but I love the whole concept of the conversation. And we had a conversation before we even went live today. So that was kind of fun backstage. And Mic and I have known each other for 2 years. We met August 2nd, 2020, actually was our connection date. And it's really fun because we met through a conversation. We met through a general introduction through our wonderful Stephen Quinn. And it was just a great way to meet people. And I thought maybe we'll talk about that in a minute because that gives some ideas about one of the ways that you can have a conversation is introducing this connection to that connection. So there's many different ways. So Mic, let's just get stuck in. So tell me sort of why did you become why are you passionate about social selling and conversation and sort of where does that fit into your world?
Well, the thing is, I've always been in sales and in marketing on my whole life before that was in the corporate world. And we did have a lot of conversations with clients, prospects, you name it. So conversation has always been part of my life. So when I moved into the social media space, it was the logical thing to do was to focus on the areas that I had a bit of experience with, which was obviously selling. And I tried to figure out how can we use these social media platforms and still continue our conversation. And the more I evolve in looking at social selling, the more I find that the conversation with people stands really at the middle and is basically the do it all for sales, marketing, recruitment, anything that you want in this world. But it's about talking to people. And that can happen real life. Of course, we did that in the past. We still do that today. And it also happens to be on social. That's why I just love the whole concept that LinkedIn and other platforms are today conversation platforms more than anything else.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And what I especially like is after 2 years, because I told you this before we went live today, I just decided I'd go back and just kind of scroll through our DM, sort of our DM history together. And it was so pleasant. It was like no pitches, no slimy stuff. It was from the get-go. I'm happy to meet you. I've been following you. I've been looking at your posts. It wasn't the obligatory, here, go like my post, do this for me, do that for me. There was never any asks. It was always just, here, I thought you might be interested in this, or can you recommend this? Do you know this person? It was all very, very nice, professional, clean, and never any spam, and also just caring. There was just like really nice messages about how are you doing? I saw that you had this. Congratulations. That to me is a nice conversation.
And that is something I carry very high in my motivation, in my operational mode, is that I want to be close to my network. So asking that question, how are you? How are things going? on a regular basis to all the people in my network, not in an automated way, but in a manual way, because I'm completely against automation as far as I'm concerned. But the thing is, we should care about people on the other side. It's all about, supporting each other. And it doesn't have to be pitches. It can be the simple, how are you? Can I do anything for you? Let me know if there's anything I can recommend. It's about building that trust, building that relationship, and being able to do that on a larger scale with social media. Because in the past, we would be able to do this with maybe 100, 150 people during the year. But now we can do it with maybe 1,000 people. It takes work.
Amazing.
In all honesty, I do spend a lot of time on messaging people. And one of the things I've fallen in love with recently, well, for a while now, is actually video messaging. Because the video messages on LinkedIn are fabulous for two reasons. Number one, I can say more in 1 minute than I can type on my smartphone.
Yes.
And second of all is I can look people in the eyes when I give them my message.
I love it.
And it's really amazing how much, traction you get when you use a video message. You are at that point building that relationship. You're building trust with the other person, as long as you don't start selling, of course. But it's a great way to reach out to people. And I'm going to make a confession here, which is I used to use a lot of the times the alert LinkedIn sent out when it was your birthday. Now I don't get them anymore since June. But I used to use that to send people birthday messages. And what I would do is I'd surprise them, not only with, happy birthday and whatever, but I always used to ask them a question. And that the number of responses that I got was more than 50% responding to me in one way or another. Some were elaborate, others were just a thumbs up, but at least I got reaction. And people remembered it.
I love that. And actually, I like to send birthday videos to people because I always feel that, like, if everybody, especially like you said, I don't think LinkedIn's even telling us birthdays anymore, but they used to give us like canned birthday messages. And I thought, okay, if somebody's getting 30 of those, it's not that special. So you could do the voice note, but then the voice note, they don't remember what you said. So I like the video messages because then they know, oh, it's from me. And if it's like, if I went, hey, Mick, happy birthday, you'd know it's not my canned, generic, it's the guy's birthday, I'll send the birthday message. It's like when you actually make a personal video for somebody, I think they just go, wow, I'm going to remember that person. So you stay top of mind.
And the funny thing is, the first year I did I did the written message. The second year I did a voice message, and then I did the video message. And people are actually waiting, how is he going to surprise me this year?
I know, it's like, open the door, there's Mick, he's at my house.
I'm like, I don't know what I would be doing after this, because a video message is a video message. The only other thing is I can actually show up in real life, but that's not going to happen quickly. I can't be everywhere at the same time. But the thing is, it created so many conversations that were not content or specific LinkedIn or whatever related, and people got to know you much better as a person.
Right. I agree.
And you can, that way you will never have to do a sale, because people know and understand who you are. They know how you operate. You're not doing the hard sell or the pitch slaps or whatever. It's just a natural thing, is if they need your product or service, they'll give you a call.
I love it. I love that.
And that's how I've been operating for the last 14 years.
That's super. So you love the video messages. What would be your second favorite way of, quote, having a conversation with people on LinkedIn?
Well, the second best is obviously reacting to their posts. That's a, if somebody posts something, obviously I'll go out there, and if I can add a reasonable comment, I'll do it, because I know I'm helping them spread their post. And basically evenly spread, it's introducing people to each other in my network, because that's such a fun thing for me. It helps me to keep my network warm, because I take person A, introduce to person B. Both people are happy to be introduced. I need to step out of the conversation then. But that way it keeps my network nice and warm. And if and when I need an introduction somewhere, I'm sure they will return that favor for me very easily.
Yes. Yes. And it stays with you, because I mentioned before, I met you because of Stephen Quinn.
Yep.
Stephen Quinn introduced us. I thought it was very amazing how he stepped out of the conversation. And I had never seen anybody do that before. And I was just like, oh, that's a thing. How do you do that? So do you physically leave the DM conversation? Is that how it works, Mick?
Yeah, that's how it works. You step out of the DM conversation after you feel that the two people have connected, because you stay there till the two people connect.
Got it.
And exchange a message left or right. What I usually say when I do an introduction is, now it's up to you to start that conversation. As soon as I see that conversation, I will just leave that group, and it's up to you to continue your conversation.
Okay,
and that's actually what Stephen and I talked about that quite a lot when we were on Zoom calls, actually.
That's very wise. And I think it's nice that you said, okay, I'm going to step out of the conversation so that when we see you leave, one, we can just go, okay, now we can just talk amongst ourselves and then figure out what's our next step. Do we want to connect or not connect? Who's gonna, submit the invite? But also too, giving us that heads up doesn't mean that like you're just like done with us. Then it's done in a nice way. So I really like that. I like that. Now we talked earlier about sort of what you wouldn't want to do as a introduction, that if I came to you and I said, hey Mick, I'm looking for HR directors, can you introduce me to every HR director, because I want to meet all these people, what would you say?
The answer is obviously no, but the reason why I would say no is because I know how many people with that profile are in my network, or I have a rough idea. And if that's 100 people, I've got to do a lot of work. I like to do the introductions, but it's a lot of work to do them. So when somebody comes to me and does that type of a question, I'm weary of the motives. We talked about that earlier too.
Yep.
Two, it's a lot of work, and I have a job like anybody else has a job, which does not entail full-time introductions.
Sure. That totally makes sense.
What I tell people is, listen, I'm more than willing to go to do an introduction. I have an open network. So go through my network, find the one or two people, or even three if it's to that point, that you want to get introduced to, and I'll do it. Plus, I will also ask them why they want to talk to them.
Okay. That's
because
good.
I mean, when I introduce A to B, I know I kind of need to set the scene why I'm connecting these people. So it is also a little bit of work of the person asking, I think.
Okay. No, that's very fair. So can you just define open network? Because you just used a phrase that I'm wondering if some people might say, what does that mean? So what do you mean when you say you have an open network?
When I say I have an open network, means that if you are connected to me, you can look through my network. You can search anybody in my network. Some people close down their network. It's in the privacy settings of LinkedIn. You can find that.
Okay.
But I don't believe in the fact that having your network, like closed and hidden from the rest. That's not the spirit of networking, in my opinion.
Okay.
I might be naive, but that's how I think about it. Is having an open network means connect with me, and you can see everybody in my network. You can look for them, and I'll more than happily introduce you to them.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, so this is kind of weird. I just got a message on the side. It says LinkedIn is having some problems creating this broadcast. I don't know
Oh,
what that
okay.
means. So I already see that we're live, so I'm not sure if somehow we went live to YouTube and something very strange just happened. But anyways, we're just going to keep moving forward because
Yeah.
we do. But it was very strange because it was like it went live to YouTube and maybe LinkedIn was like, okay, just another thing that we do. So I do see that we have some comments. So I'm going to go
Okay.
ahead and we'll look at our comments. So, okay, so we have Jeff Young here, and he's such a fan. He's such a fan, and he says,
So
"I
am
have
I.
been following." You're a fan of him. It's fan love. It's fan love here, guys, which is great. And he says, I have been following Mick for a very long time. I always enjoy his tips. So I'm really looking forward to learning from you too, Gillian. Namaste. And Mick, I have to say that it's like I have been a fan of yours for a while, which is why I made you one of my follow the LinkedIn leaders and featured you. Gosh, I think that was almost a year ago, where it was just like I would just went, this is a guy that knows his stuff. And I just thought you were a great example of someone doing LinkedIn ethically by telling us the things we shouldn't be doing, but you also tell us the things that we should be doing. So the social selling and the conversations, those are the do's. The automation, those are the don'ts.
Definitely.
and we don't want to mix them up. So I'm a fan too.
It's kind of funny though, if I may, is that certain people are beginning to contact me to find out whether one or the other software or tool is allowed by LinkedIn. And I'm like, I don't know. I know a lot about automation, but I don't, and sometimes you find that's how I get actually my tips for my blacklist, if I can call it that way, for automation.
Oh, and it's fabulous. And it does make you realize that it's like, I think when I first saw your article about like the things that can get you banned on LinkedIn, it just made me realize if this is your sort of like your bucket of eggs, you don't want to do anything to, you want to take care of them, because it's like, if you get banned from LinkedIn, then what? It's like, okay, then we're all going to be forced to go on Pinterest or something. And that's not where my clients are. They're not on Pinterest. Okay, so Marcia says, hello, Gillian and Mick, checking in from DC. It's always an absolute pleasure being on your platform, Gillian. Yay! I love them. They come in from the East Coast. We got the East Coast. We got the West Coast. We got across the pond. Is anyone else having trouble getting in? Yeah, I guess our whole first 15 minutes only went to YouTube. We're gonna figure that out. Hopefully the replay will get it all straight, but just always a fun challenge with LinkedIn. Okay, LinkedIn won't let me see. So, okay, people headed over to YouTube. So that's nice to know. He's been following. Okay, so same comment. The broadcast finally came back up on LinkedIn. That's just so frustrating. That's so frustrating. So Mick, tell me, so one of the things that you have on your featured section is you have like I'm looking at my title, 50 plus triggers that you can use as conversation starters. So basically, if somebody is sitting here saying, okay, I've got a little bit of a network, that's perfect. That is perfect. So they can go print that out. And then is there kind of some that, like, if you were new to LinkedIn, where would you suggest they start so that they don't go 50 plus? Which ones should I focus on first?
Focus on the ones, and this is what I've been doing. I mean, over the years, it's been shifting from one area to the next, depending on where you are in your LinkedIn cycle and what you're trying to achieve at the moment in time, because they do change. LinkedIn takes things away, like the birthday alert. I think from my point of view, where would I start? I would start with the notifications, because LinkedIn tells you a bunch of things about your network, like who changed jobs, like who has work anniversaries, who's got birthdays, if you still get those, who viewed your profile, who's following you. There's a bunch of those notifications that come in that are actually fabulous conversation starters.
I love it. I love it. So how about who's viewed your profile? How do you respond to that without coming across as like, why are you looking at me? Like what's a nice way to elicit a conversation with that without putting somebody on a defensive?
Thank you for visiting my profile. Did you find what you were looking for? If not, how can I help you?
Okay. That's nice. That's nice.
And that has worked for years for me.
Wow. Wow. That's
Because
great.
I mean, I'm offering help, because if somebody comes to your profile, they're looking for something.
Mm.
Whatever it is, I mean, it's not up to me to decide what they're looking for. They know what they hopefully were looking for. And then, if did they find it? Because maybe they've heard about me, or they've heard about a post or whatever. But, maybe they didn't find it, so I can help them do it. And that's the way that it works. I mean, case in point, I was on a LinkedIn audio earlier this week, and we were talking about sending video messages through LinkedIn. And I've actually made a video about it, which I'll post next week. And one person sent me a message saying, "Oh, you know what? I looked at your profile, and I was trying to figure out where all this stuff was." And the simple thing I could do was just send that person the video that I had just created, which was basically subtitled by CapCut. Thank you very much, Gillian, for doing that. And then send that to that person. I mean, what a conversation did we have after that?
Yep. Yep. I agree.
So,
And sometimes that's what we do. We point.
yeah, and the thing is, thank people for visiting. They did an effort, so they came and showed up. They knocked on your door. And, the other two questions, or the other two elements, just contribute to starting that conversation.
Okay. Okay. That's good. That's good. So let me take another twist. When you get a conversation that is not a nice conversation, where they're intentionally just, they've connected with you, and then boom comes the pitch and everything else. How do you respond to that? Do you respond? And if you respond, what do you say?
Well, I have two strategies depending on the mood I'm in. One strategy is basically to say, "I'm not interested," and go away, and I'll throw you
Okay.
under my network.
Okay.
The other one is the more interesting of the two, is I will actually pitch back to them how I can help them.
Ah.
Telling them that the way they just did this is not the right way. And I have to thank Brenda Meller for that, because she kind of came up with that kind of an approach. And I figured, give it a try. And I did. And I've taken it in now so when people try and sell me things like that in a pitch, I might just turn around and say, "By the way, you're doing this all wrong," and whatever. I mean, I'm probably more of a person to help you than you are to help me. So here, by the way, should we set up a conversation?
I love that. I love that. And so
Double
then,
answers in most cases.
yeah, and I think that's nice, because you're using it as a teachable moment,
Yeah,
and you're kind of saying, okay, how can I make a positive situation out of this? And
yeah.
so I think that's really good. So when do you take those conversations off LinkedIn into like a Zoom call, or maybe using the LinkedIn meetings?
That's I think that's more of a feeling, whether you feel like, okay, this is the moment we need to switch to something else, because we don't want to have this conversation, back analog, as opposed to let's meet. um,
Right.
I think it's more of a gut feeling when that moment needs to happen. It's not like after the third or the fourth message and stuff like that, that it actually will pan out to a Zoom call or whatever digital call format people want.
Okay. No, that totally makes sense. That makes sense. I see, we got, okay, poor Jeff has been busy today. I'm gonna have to buy Jeff a cup of coffee. He's been giving people the YouTube link to hop over to YouTube. Bless his heart. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Thank you. Yay, finally the broadcast is back. People
Mhm.
have already flipped over to YouTube, and they're back
Okay.
again.
Okay.
Okay,
Cool.
agree. Notifications are a gold mine. And it's really it's hard to stay on top of that. I'm still kind of working out my system. I think I learned from John Asperian. I always have to talk about John Asperian because I
Of
just,
course, he's
I
great.
just he's a great guy, and he, I think, suggests you just delete them. Like you take care of them and then just delete them, and then you've handled it, so you don't have to keep scrolling through them on and on again. Although sometimes I just go, they go on forever though. that's that's
Yeah,
the
I,
thing.
I I mean, when you do a pitch, on your second message, I think that you're not in the right mode. If you don't reply to my message, you just disconnect
Yep.
and off you go into the Wild West.
Yep. I agree. Oh, we got the lovely Kevin Turner here. Too cool.
Great.
Gillian Whitney and Mic Adam in the same place. He's also another really great guy to just be anything with LinkedIn. It is Kevin Turner. He's amazing.
Mhm.
And it does work. Mick, I may not contact every person who looks at my profile, but I always look back to check them
Mhm.
out. I think that's a good idea, that if you don't even have time to just, flip over and
It just depends on the number of people that view your profile. If it happens to be 5 or 10 people in a week or in 2 weeks, I think looking at one or two profiles or sending a message is probably not a lot. But I understand if you get 10, 15, 20, 50 people a day, then you have to become selective at that point. I do agree with that point too,
yeah,
which you can't do everything and be everything to everybody.
that's true. That's true. So may I ask, are you on premium, and do you think, I'm on the free plan of LinkedIn. Do you think that premium's needed to really take advantage of the social selling and the art of the conversation? Is that a requirement in your eyes? Yes or no?
The answer is no. And yes, I am on premium. Now, the advantage of premium, in my opinion, is that a number of specific things can be done more efficiently. But you could theoretically do everything in the free version.
Okay.
Or, well, it will take more work, it will take more dedication. And then you got to weigh up the fact that, do I switch to, for example, a sales navigator, or do I put in the time?
Right.
And what is that worth for either one? The other thing is that oftentimes, and this is my pet peeve with LinkedIn as such, is in order to switch to a premium subscription, you really need the people that are in your target group to be more active on LinkedIn. Because
Oh,
otherwise, there's no way you're going to be able to react to their posts. I mean, yes, you can look for people more efficiently, but is that going to make your day? No, because you're not going to start more conversations that way. So I think from my point of view, what I try and bring to people is use the free version for social
okay.
selling to
Okay.
the maximum of its ability. And when you run into a wall that you can pass, then consider paying for Sales Navigator, Recruiter
Okay.
Lite, you name it out there. So is it necessary? The answer to me is still no. If tomorrow I'd stop my Sales Navigator, I would lose a bunch of things. Yeah, it would take more time.
Right. And I think maybe also too, based on your specific job, they might be more required than, say, somebody who's just, I don't know, just looking for a job or something. Maybe they don't need to turn around and have all those bells and whistles. And, like you said, use the free version and make sure you're using that to all its potential before you worry. Because I think
Yeah.
a lot of people are erroneously believe that just having the gold little LinkedIn icon, that does something magical for them, and it
It
really
doesn't.
doesn't. It's just,
You still
now
have
you're
to put in the
paying.
work. You
You
still
have
have
to.
to put in you still have to put in the work. Otherwise, you're not gonna get there.
I love it. I love it. I
And
love
and
it.
and I mean, then you decide whether that's worth the money versus your time, and that's really what it boils down to. But I think, and this is what I try and mention to people, is that LinkedIn today, or the use of LinkedIn today by many people, is like the use of Word or Excel. We use maybe 10 to 15% of the LinkedIn free functionality, like we do in Word, like we do in Excel.
I
So
love
try
that.
and figure out where you hit 50, 60, 70% of LinkedIn functionality before you even consider going to a paid subscription.
I love that. That's great. That's great. So we've reached our 30 minutes.
Oh,
Just in
wow.
case it didn't come out at the beginning, I do want everybody to circle back to Mick's profile, go to his featured section, and that is where you can find, can you hold it up again, Mick? Because it was an awesome thing. It was 50 plus LinkedIn social selling and conversation triggers. So if
Yeah,
you're sitting there going, I don't know what I would say to people. I don't know how to start a conversation. Shame on you, because here's 50 plus
but
ways you can do it.
if I may, Gillian, is to say, if you don't know how to start a conversation in real life, I mean, in real life, we are all able to start conversations with people, most of the time at least.
Yep.
If
Yep.
you can't do it in real life, it's not going to work on LinkedIn. But the thing is, they're so simple.
Yes. Yes. And it's all about asking questions. It's really,
Exactly.
it's like that's how we start a conversation naturally. If you're standing in line at the airport and you're talking to somebody before, you might say, "Oh my goodness, are we ever going to get on this plane?" It's just
Right.
something natural, but it usually
Right.
begins with a question. And that's
Exactly.
all we need to do is take that strategy and switch it to LinkedIn. So that's good.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Exactly.
Okay, so do you want to give us any parting takeaway thoughts before we close up our show today?
Well, yes, I do. One of them is, if you ever have the time, download your complete data from LinkedIn.
Ah,
And in that download, there is a little file called Messages, which is a list of all the messages you've ever sent and received on LinkedIn. Take a look at that file. Maybe you can even sort it. I can even tell people how to sort it and split it out into incoming and outgoing messages, and see how many conversations you have had on LinkedIn
love it.
and who they have been with. You'll find something really amazing, and you'll also find a lot of gold in terms of starting conversations with other people.
I love that.
When you do the download, and here's the second tip, go and look to the connection file. It actually has the date you connected with that person. Now,
Hmm.
what I do is I look for people that I connected with on the day 5 years, 10 years, and 15 years ago. That's
Yeah.
a good reason to reach out to people saying, we've been connected for X years. How are you doing?
Oh, I love that.
Those are my two departing tips and ideas for people to pursue. If you need any help with any of those, for people listening in, send me a message and I'll help you get that information out.
Oh, that's super. That's super. And I know you put a whole article together about that, because I know you reference back to the show
Yeah.
where Mac was on my show and we were talking
Yep.
about this kind of
Yes.
stuff. So,
Yes.
and you kind of went one step further with how do you organize that file? So
Yep.
that was a great article. So now two things to go look at on Mick's featured section, and connect with Mick and get acquainted and begin a conversation for sure. Well,
Yep.
Mick, thank you so much for being on the show today. I appreciate it. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but that's LinkedIn and we just have to live with it. We just
Yeah.
keep rolling. So that's good. All right. Bye, everybody. And we will see you next week.
All
Bye.
right. Bye bye.